Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to be continuing our character creation process using the 1d10 system. In our previous step, we had a look at features, and now because we've chosen a feature that uses spells, we're going to look at how to choose our spells and how spells work within the game. So let's pop over to spellcasting, and we'll do a quick overview of how spells work, and then we'll choose a couple of spells for our character. So the way spells work in the 1d10 system, in this particular setting, is that spells are broken up into 9 levels, cantrips, and then levels 1 to 9. And the higher the level, it represents the more powerful the spell, and the lower the level represents weaker spells. Spells are chosen in a pretty easy way. We just select the feature which is associated with a particular level of spells, whether that be cantrips, level 1 or 2, or spells. And then we choose the designated spells from the spells list. So there's a section over here which has all the different spell levels, and we just choose our favorite spells from that particular list up to the amount indicated in the feature. So because we chose level 1 spells with our previous character, Ignis Fireheart, it says here we have 3 spell points, and we may choose up to 3 spells from the level 1 spells list. So we'll end up doing that. So how do you cast spells, and what are spell points? So to cast a spell, generally what you do is you read the description. There are a bunch of attributes that come with the spell, a bunch of characteristics that cover the spell. This is covered in the section just past. And it covers how quickly the spell can be activated, how long it lasts for, its range, whether you need to focus on it or not. So focusing will require you to focus your attention on that spell. And if another spell requires your focus, you can only focus on one at a time generally. And then it covers the spell description, so what the spell actually does. So what you do is you'll read that, and then that will indicate how to use the spell. To cast it, you generally expend what's called a spell point, and spell points are used to power your spells. And when we go back to the feature, you'll see here that it indicates that you have 3 spell points for level 1, and what happens is each spell point is specific to that spell level. So if you go to level 2 spells, it'll say you have 3 spell points, and they are used to power your level 2 spells, and so on as you go further down the different types of features. So what happens is when you want to use a spell, you'll choose it, expend a power point, a spell point in this instance, that'll power the spell, and then you carry out the effects of the spell. And so what we'll do is, let's just go through and have a look at some level 1 spells that we might want to choose for our character. So, as we mentioned before, Ignis Fireheart is our Drakesquin Inquisitor type character with his noble background. He's into ciphers. He's pretty good with his mental and social abilities, so he's very good with his knowledge, and he's pretty good around other people. He's got heightened senses, natural armor, so he's pretty durable naturally without any magic. He's got magic spells, which we're going to pick now, and he's got some abilities with ability to be able to distract people or make them make mistakes, which is fantastic. So let's pop over here. So as you can see, this is where we record our known spells in the character sheet. And as you can see here, this indicates our points. And because we're only using level 1 spells, we've got 3 points to use to power our spells. And what we can do is as we spend a spell point, we can mark it down and reduce that number down until it gets to 0. Once we get to 0, to recover our spell points, we just need to rest. And once we've rested, all our spell points come back to full. So let's have a look and see what sort of spells might be interesting for our character. So having a look through here, there's a lot of spells you can choose. They're all quite interesting. But a couple that stood out to me, which I thought could be pretty cool. The first one being Arcane Shield. So this is great. It says when you are damaged by an attack and you suffer any physical damage, you can use your reaction to reduce the damage taken by 2. So this is awesome. So this dragon character could be stretching out their hands and deflecting all this energy, dissipating it into the air and reducing the damage that you take. But one other thing to note with spellcasting is there's no specific descriptions to how the spells are represented in your game. So they're written in a very generic way that basically provides the mechanical impact. But the idea is that while the effects of the spell are specific, the way the spell creates a desired effect is completely left up to you. So for example, if you want to use the spell single attack, you can use it to represent a ball of lightning that fires across a battlefield, or you could electrocute a foe with your hands. You could, if you chose the damage type to be physical for that particular spell, potentially you hurl a giant boulder, or you impale someone on some sharp rocks that you conjure up under their feet. It's really up to you how you represent it, and this is where the fun part of the game. So similar to features, which don't really provide a narrative description, features and spells allow you to provide the narrative of how your character represents the ability that they're trying to use. So this really allows you to bring out that idiosyncratic, personalized nature, that immersion that your character is creating, so that you can really represent what you think your character would look like, rather than the game trying to dictate, how the effects that you're trying to produce are created. So I think this is a really excellent part of the system. I think something that really allows you to become really connected to your character. So popping back, let's see if we can choose some level 1 spells. So first one I mentioned was Arcane Shield. So let's note that down in our character sheet. So we'll go Arcane Shield. Another spell which I thought could be really interesting would be Comprehension. So given that we're an Inquisitor and we like ferreting around for information, Comprehension allows us to understand any spoken language that we hear and read, and any written language that we can see. So this sounds like a really cool ability, allowing us to read information, even coded information, which is fantastic, because that'll be very handy for us if we, say for example, fail a skill check and we can't decipher something. We can use our magic to try and decipher it. So definitely something that I'm going to choose for this character. And finally, Multi-Attack 1 really struck out to me. So Multi-Attack represents, this is a spell where you choose a couple of different types of damage, and when you make a spell attack, you can target multiple creatures. So you can choose up to 2 creatures within long range, and you make a spell attack, and then you can inflict fire or cold or lightning or whatever type of damage you've chosen upon the creatures. And I thought, given that we're a creature, a draconic style of Drakeskin type creature, it'd be awesome if we could breathe fire on people. So I'm going to choose Multi-Attack 1. And I'm going to choose fire as one of my damage types. And maybe I'll choose something like physical. I think physical would be something cool as well. And so now that we've chosen our spells, we've pretty much completed step 6. I'll just do a quick run through on the different characteristics here, just while we've got everyone's attention. So as you can see, this is the spell name. AT represents our activation time. In this case, there's an A for an action, I for an incidental, and R for a reaction, which are used throughout the game. If you're not in combat, these elements are not as relevant, so you don't have to worry about them, but that's all covered in more detail in the spellcasting section. D represents duration. So for example, if it's instant, it means it takes effect and then ends immediately. If it's something like 10 minutes or 1 hour, like Comprehension, it means the duration lasts for about an hour. And then there's different ranges. So anything from self, which represents you, your person directly, or up to short, medium, long, and even extreme range, depending on what the feature is. And that's usually a good idea for used in combat, and it can also be used in exploration as a bit of relative distance. And F, as we mentioned earlier, represents focus. So when you choose an ability that's got a Y in the column, that represents that there is a focus required and that you can't use a secondary focus ability. So similarly, if you're using Ultra Emotions and it says F is Y here for focus, and you wanted to use Shield 1, you would have to choose one or the other ability. You couldn't run them both simultaneously because the concentration, the focus required to maintain the effect is too powerful. And that's really all I wanted to cover with spells today. Thanks for that, and we'll see you in the next video, which will cover equipment.